Are you overwhelmed by the challenge of personalizing communication for thousands of students? That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. From nudging prospective students to guiding those already on their journey, AI assistants don't just automate. They write, build, and optimize every step of your digital campaigns. Discover how at element451.com/AI team.
So for all y'all listening, it's like, thanks for helping make our year. Like, this is one of the cooler things I've gotten to do this year. And it means a lot that you listen and that you tune in each week. And Mallory, it means a lot that we get to do this. So I'm excited for today, because today we are unpacking highlights from some of our favorite episodes. And it's like, we've made it as a show when we can highlight a few things.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Wilsey, bringing over 15 years of ed tech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Seth, what a year it's been. 46 episodes in 52 weeks. Like, who knew?
That's wild. That's crazy. We have packed it in. We've had so many conversations this year. I don't know. It's been exciting. I always love seeing you. This is always just a fun aspect of the week. But 46, wow. You know, we know how to pack it in. We don't have a good time.
And we have so enjoyed, I guess I can't speak for you, but I have so enjoyed as I've been out on the conference circuit, like just hearing from people who like come up and are like, I listen to you every single week, or like, you know, Seth said this thing and it like had a real impact on what I was doing that day.
Yeah, I've heard from more people than I thought. I don't know why. Like, of course, people are listening and we see the download data and stuff. But it's always so cool when someone says, "Oh, I've been loving this," like this anecdote, or they share some piece with me. So for all y'all listening, it's like, thanks for helping make our year. Like, this is one of the cooler things I've gotten to do this year, and it means a lot that you listen and that you tune in each week. And Mallory, it means a lot that we get to do this. So I'm excited for today, because today we are unpacking highlights from some of our favorite episodes. And it's like, we've made it as a show when we can highlight a few things. And there's just a couple I want to break out. And so I'm so glad we're doing this format today. It's a new one. And I'm like really looking forward to throwing it back on at least a couple. I think we're each doing two, right? 2 episodes each of what stood out for us in 2024.
Yeah. So yes, the structure of this will be a little bit different, listeners. We will introduce whatever that favorite episode is, and then we're going to play a short clip from that episode because maybe you missed it. And then we'll do that 4 times, and then we'll wrap this one up. It's the holiday week after all, and maybe you're listening to this as you're driving up to, you know, grandma's or who knows. So we're taking a little bit of a lighter tone. And yeah, Seth, I'm excited to hear which 2 episodes made your list. Do you want to kick us off?
Yes, I am so excited to go first. So if you've been a long-time listener, it might be top of your list, but number 1 for me was definitely the April Fool's AI episode. So to remind everybody, we dropped an April 1st episode that was obviously about AI, but there was 2 things about it. The first was that the script was written by AI, and as folks listened, they figured that out pretty quickly, I think, from folks that talked to us. But what they didn't realize is we had a pretty big bombshell at the end of the episode, which we revealed that not only was the script AI, but our voices were AI too. And we had created AI voice clones of ourselves, and we dropped that at the end. And so if you missed that episode, you're going to get a clip right now, and I'm excited because you're going to hear us talk talk through it. You're going to hear the reveal. And so many folks told us that they got so much from this because they're like, oh, I figured out a minute in that it was an AI script that wrote this episode, but nobody figured out that it wasn't even us talking all along. It was AI voices. And so, yeah, here's the clip that we're going to roll. So if you did not hear that the first time, and if you did, just enjoy that bombshell moment one more time.
And as we develop these AI tools and strategies, it's crucial that we prioritize transparency and ethical considerations every step of the way. This includes clear communication about how AI is being used, what data is being collected, and how privacy and security are being safeguarded. I think our conversation today underscores the importance of cautious optimism and proactive strategies in navigating the integration of AI into our educational landscapes.
That's right. AI isn't just a tool we're adding to the educational toolkit. It's a force that's fundamentally reshaping the landscape of higher education, whether we like it or not.
So, I suppose it's time to let you all in on a little secret. This entire episode, every insight, debate, and so-called expert opinion wasn't exactly, how should I put it, human-generated. I think it's time to remind our listeners that today is April Fool's Day.
Ha 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 ha. That's right. From the script to the voices you've heard, AI's been the puppet master. ChatGPT lent us a hand in writing this entire conversation, literally from the initial outline to the final script you're hearing now. One morning last week, I built a custom GPT based on the past transcripts of our Pulse episodes, and I instructed the GPT to generate podcast scripts with Seth and my tone and style, and to construct the conversation based on topical research that I provided around this topic of AI challenges and cautions.
And our voices, courtesy of 11 Labs and their professional voice cloning capabilities, me talking right now? Well, it's not actually me. Mallory and I created indistinguishable AI versions of our voices, also based on our past Pulse episode recordings.
Oh, the irony, right? A whole episode about the cautionary tales and ethical quandaries of AI in education. And it turns out AI's been leading the charge the whole time. It is April Fool's Day after all, and we couldn't resist the opportunity to have a little fun and show off just how far AI has come.
And here's the mic drop moment. AI, with all its complexities, managed to keep you engaged, pondering the future of education alongside us. It's a testament to the very potential we've been discussing. But don't worry, AI hasn't taken over just yet. Mallory and I are still here, very much human, and chuckling at our own AI-generated personas.
AI has the power to mimic, to create, to provoke thought, and even to entertain. But the human element, that's irreplaceable. The laughter, the spontaneity, the genuine connection we share with you, that's all us. Seth, that was one of my absolute favorite episodes of the year as well. I will say it probably took 10x the amount of production resources.
Yeah, it did. We hadn't done it before, right? It's like, yeah, it's so true. It was a lot to pull off. At one point in the middle, I was like, I'm not sure we should do it. You stuck with it. You pushed us through, like, no, we're going to figure this out because we had to learn how to do it. But hearing how people got fooled by it was so worth it. And I will say, it's also my most played episode because I still pull it up and play it for family. I played it for my mom. She had no idea. I played it for my nephew. He had no idea. And so, like, we are continuing to fool people because I play folks and they're like, oh, you have a podcast. I'm like, that's not actually me. And that's when people's minds get totally blown. And so it's been a really, really fun one.
Yes, I'll admit I do the same thing. So we can probably attribute us doing that for like some portion of the downloads on that episode.
Well, mine's already downloaded, at least, so it's just the listens. Yeah, listen through, yeah. But 100%.
That's fair.
A lot of the playbacks are probably both of us. That's true. Okay, so that was my first. What is your first highlight episode you want to spotlight?
All right, I want to spotlight an episode from the end of October. It was our AI and student recruitment episode, and I just really enjoyed this conversation. I mean, we talk about AI so much, and this was the episode where we really kind of dug into its impact around student recruitment and talked about how, the future is these AI agents that will take action on your behalf. And we used a great use case around driving students to apply or finish their application. And we also kind of touched on the efficiencies that will come to staff as a result. I shared this stat a couple weeks ago, but like 30% of our jobs are repetitive and like administrative. And so AI is going to continue to have a real impact for all of us in our day to day. So, folks, enjoy this quick few-minute clip from that episode. And I think when we drill it down to actually communicating with individual students, this is where those AI assistants start to come into play. And so if like the first phase was to create these bots, right, that are reactive, the next phase, and it's coming fast, is going to create bots that actually come to you and take action on your behalf and bring insights and expertise. So I think the like clear use case here is driving students to like apply or finish their application. So imagine having like that proactive bot that doesn't wait for the user to decide to contact them in order to conduct that action, but actually is able to like act on its own without any prompting, right? You kind of set it and forget it. When a student hits maybe this point of their application and you realize that is where a lot of stop-outs happen, you can set up a proactive agent to actually do the outreach on your behalf. And then that leads us into like an earlier point around staff efficiency, right? Like it just kind of takes it completely out of the mind of that admissions counselor to have to follow up.
Well, see, we talk a lot about personalization in student recruitment and its impact, but so much of that historically has been manual. And so even like when we build out different like communication segments in a nurture series, we're like, okay, well, let's segment by area of study or by degree level. But you could essentially, this is limitless because what we've relied on in the past has been we need to get them to a person, and that person can then look at their CRM file and provide totally personalized engagement. And that's essentially has the potential to be fully automated right now, which is extremely exciting, especially when you think about the data that you can put in. So not just data from like their engagement on just a core website, but like the more information you get as far as their overall interests, as well as their objections, and their motivations. So like as we learn that a student is maybe concerned about being able to afford school, or a student's concerned about being able to fit it in with their work schedule, like all of that can suddenly be tailored and customized in a way that historically we've relied on an actual person to be able to do that analysis. Yeah, now it's real time and it can totally be personalized. To me, that is like a very, very impactful evolution of the tech that is, I think, really exciting when you think about the application.
Yeah, and we know staff shortages are still very real. And so anything we can do to free up the human team to focus on the higher touch and more strategic work, that really makes a difference for students versus being like a button pusher, like, oh, I have to remind a student today to go finish this application. Like, yeah, that just becomes so much more valuable. And then I think another big challenge on campuses too is like with all the staff turnover, it's the lack of training. And we were talking about this in a recent episode, but like the person who's maybe updating the website is not exactly your FAFSA expert, right? And so like, so does everybody on campus need to be a financial aid expert? No, absolutely not. Like this is where the AI assistants, especially a proactive one, can like step in. They learn and deploy the new information instantly at scale with no downtime when the student needs it, even if that's 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. So it just makes it a lot more easier for a school to stay like really agile and like as all of these things, and FAFSA is just such a great example because of all the challenges with it over the last year or so. Like, more information is coming out faster than anybody can really process.
I love that one. That was one of my favorite episodes too. In particular, there's a couple things in there that I loved. One was that point about how much we can free up staff efficiency, because it's not about replacing staff. It's about freeing up bandwidth to be able to go and do other high touch things that really need to be done by people. And so to me, it's like, who doesn't want to be freed up to do the most critical work all of the time? And I think that episode captured that perfectly. So I loved that episode. That was one of my favorites too.
Nice. All right, Seth, give us your second one.
Okay, my second episode for the year that I want to highlight is career advice for rising leaders. So if you tuned into that episode, we broke down a lot of advice for rising leaders in our industry. And I think it was a chance for you and I to both kind of give back a little bit and self-reflect on our own careers. And I felt like we just broke down a lot of really tangible advice, things that we learned in real time, the hard way. I felt like when we were coming up, there weren't a lot of, I felt like we were almost all coming up together. And perhaps that was because the folks that were most engaged and vocal on social media, which is where we connected, and so many folks I've met with in our industry, were on the younger side. And so it felt like we were sort of all in this same chapter. And I didn't feel like I had a lot of folks in the industry. Like there weren't, I can't recall, CMOs from 2008 that were sharing a ton of how they got there and what advice they would give. And if they were out there, I just missed that. And so this episode was personally really fulfilling because it gave me a chance to try to like give back a little bit of advice on the things I've learned. And I got a lot of good feedback on it from folks. And so without further ado, we'll let it play and we'll just hear a couple clips that we shared of some of the advice that we would give to rising leaders.
My third career advice for rising leaders is solve your boss's problems, not yours. It's so often in a role to focus on our own aspirations or visions or the things that we want to do. But the reality is, like, our job is just to make sure our boss hits their goals. And our goal is just a component of their goal. And so just like make your boss look good, make sure you're hitting the goals, solve your boss's problems, not yours. So one simple anecdote for that for me, when I was at UCLA, the associate vice chancellor came up to me at one point and said, "Hey, do you know Final Cut Pro?" And I said, yes, and I didn't. And I went home and learned it over the weekend. And I became the videographer. She's like, they were being asked to film more stuff and put more stuff online. And it was 2007 and 8. And I figured out how to do that. And I solved her problem. And by solving her problem, I literally became the first videographer in the department. I became like the lead for social media. Like I did all this stuff for UCLA that I was totally unqualified to do because I solved her problem, not my problem. So solve your boss's problem, not yours.
Fantastic advice. Fantastic. And then when you become the boss, here's my next piece of advice. I really hold to the tenet of hire slow and fire fast. And I think that's tough in higher ed when we tend to be in an industry where letting people go is not as common as maybe, on the agency or ed tech side, right? So I know for our on-campus listeners, this may be challenging, but hiring slow and firing fast has never burned me. And usually, within about 90 days, if that person is going to succeed or not. And when you start seeing signs that they might not be the right fit for that role or the right seat on the bus, start documenting things. I have had many times in my career where I have not had the discipline to document the stuff that I should have, and it's burned me every single time. You do have the time right now to document whatever it is, because 3 to 6 months from now, when you really need that information, you are going to thank yourself because you'll actually have it and you won't be racking your brain trying to figure it out. But hopefully you don't even need to get to that point, because if you hire slow and you really make sure you do your due diligence on finding the right person, right? Like that can help solve the problem before it even becomes a problem.
I think that's super important. People are the most important thing when it comes to the quality and caliber of the work that we're able to produce. And yeah, depending on your environment, it can be easier or harder to make like changes in that area. But there's always things that can be done. And I do think I have seen often that people will wait too long to address something. And then the problem is already quite large. And so I think that like do the hard thing is almost always the right answer.
I absolutely loved that episode too. In fact, so in that clip, you heard me talk about hiring slow and firing fast. And I was just in a room of advancement professionals about a month ago, and I kind of expressed those sentiments. And Seth, I got a lot of wide eyes. Like, I don't know that higher ed's at a place to fire fast quite yet. But you know what's exciting? And I'll take this opportunity. Our very first Pulse Check series of the year in 2025 is going to be co-hosted by Enrollify's very own Aaron Fields and Shelby Moquin. Because of the success of this episode, they are two rising leaders who have a lot to say around managing up and learning to lead and how to take and give feedback as a younger professional. So, I mean, we're just a couple weeks away from their 3-part series dropping.
I love that. I cannot wait to hear it.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
I love it. So those are my two. What is your last one to round us out?
My last one happens to be one of the most downloaded episodes from this year across the entire network. And not one of, I'd say probably the episode that people reference to me most frequently when I see them in real life. And it was our episode about why every CMO wants to quit.
Yes, that was an episode. I heard from more people on that than possibly almost any other. I agree. That was a big one.
Well, shout out to Simpson Scarborough, because we based, we got the inspiration for that episode from some of the research that they released earlier this year. And the clip you're about to hear is just a short 4-minute clip from the episode where we talk about getting creative with the resources that you have. The challenge as a marketing leader isn't always about the amount of resources or increasing those resources, but it's how effectively you're managing those resources that you are allocated. And we as marketing leaders have to get strategic and creative and innovative with these resources. Artificial intelligence is transformative in this process and allowing us to be more productive and overcome that brain drain that you mentioned earlier in this episode. Leveraging those existing assets innovatively can mitigate the resource constraints that we're facing. So I don't know, sometimes I think we like to sit back and just complain, but we also have to sometimes just roll our sleeves up and say, okay, what am I working with? And 2 years ago at AMA, there was an excellent presentation that showed a comparison from within higher ed and the budget breakdown to industries outside of higher ed. And the most notable thing in those two charts was in higher ed, our budget is largely disproportionately high on the staffing side and low on the MarTech side compared to outside industries where it's a bit more balanced. And so, yes, you have to have the right people in place to handle your marketing technology. But when we think about scaling things like personalized engagement or, just enabling our staff and our team to get out of the manual drag of, collating information from 10 different point solutions and, all of that crap, more investment in marketing technology can be an answer here.
Yeah, I think it's right. I mean, I like the hot take. I think that, there's just a reality that I don't know that anyone surveyed will ever say they're over-resourced. And so I think some of that comes down to how are we assessing that? And we're assessing it probably against the things that are being asked of us. And I think that's a broader question of back to your point of misalignment, which I think was a key theme here of this early chapter of the research, was that one area of misalignment is expectation versus investment, right? And so it's, are you under-resourced or are you under-resourced to be able to pull off the things that are expected? And I don't even know if under-resourced is always correct. I think sometimes it goes back to the fact that expectations just aren't realistic at all, meaning how many times do you go to a budget season and it's I want to spend less next year, but I want to make more. It's wait, you want to get more students, but you want to spend less, but the market's more competitive and there's less students finishing high school. Got it. How in the world do you think that's the case without calling me a total idiot as your head of marketing, right? The only way you can put that plan together is to think that I haven't done some fundamental thing that I should be doing.
Right.
And then when you ask it, it's which isn't fair. So I think some of that is it's bigger. I agree. I think it's way bigger than resources. I think the misalignment piece is bigger. And the other area I think of misalignment, I would say, is do you have the autonomy? So I agree with you on the people piece. I think we've invested too much as an industry in administration over the years. We've gotten much larger from an administrative perspective, and it's not always people that we need. Some of the most impressive companies, have 30, 40, 50 people in them as entire companies on the tech side of things. And so there's other industries that have figured this out. The question for a CMO coming in is, do you have the autonomy and are you empowered to actually make that impact, to go from a decentralized team to a centralized team, or an in-house team to an outsourced team, or vice versa, where you want to pull sources in and build an in-house team? Those are key components. I've been lucky in my career, I've had the chance to build in-house agencies and to make those kind of changes. But if you don't, you're kind of we want you to inherit the model of the past, but sign up for the results of the future. And by the way, we're going to give you less money to do it. That is a recipe for disaster. And so I think you're right. It's fair to poke on, am I under-resourced? Because there's a bigger, more important conversation, I think, happening underneath that. So I like the hot take and I co-sign.
I love that clip, love that episode. I just found that conversation to be so insightful. And I think it's so important because, I always talk about, if you want to win, you got to play winnable games. And I feel for so many folks that heard that episode, it helped to figure out what can you do within your own organization, but also allow you to feel like you're not alone necessarily. A lot of us are in this place, and we heard that and we see that so many CMOs are questioning where they are and where they want to go. And it's really unfortunate. And so my hope is that we see more CMOs stay and succeed. But obviously, as you heard in that clip, we got to do more, but also we need more support to get it done.
Throughout the year, I've thought a lot about something that you said in that episode and that we included in that clip. And it is, does the CMO have the autonomy to make the right changes? Have they inherited the model of the past but signed up for the results of the future? And I just really that stuck with me, Seth. And I think whether you're CMO or mid-career or early career, we can all ask ourselves those kind of questions.
Yeah.
And, and make sure that expectations are realistic.
Yeah, completely. We all want to take on big challenges, but we want to feel like there's a chance that we can win. I appreciate the call. That was a great episode. And so I will say for folks listening, we'd love to hear what your favorite episodes were, but we'd also love if you have ideas for future episodes too, where we're just starting to kick the tires on planning for 2025. It's fun to look back at these topics and realize that we had some really impactful episodes, ones that people messaged me about or us emails or DMs on LinkedIn. It always feels good to know that there's value there. And so I would love to hear what kind of conversations people want us to have, as well as if there's any that we missed. If there's a highlight for you, I would love to know, because it's been a really fun year putting these together.
It sure has. And folks, we're going to be taking next week off. I'm actually heading up to Northern California, spending some time with family. Seth and I will be back on January 6th, and we will be talking about the Ethical AI University. If you heard our predictions episode last week, you know that I guess 2 weeks ago now, but all 3 of my predictions centered around AI. And so we can't talk about AI if we're also not talking about the ethical concerns. And, let's rip the Band-Aid off and start 2025 with a bang, Seth. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
I'm excited. I'll see you then. Have a wonderful holiday, Mallory.
All right. Bye, friends. Happy holidays. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.